Dungeons & Dragons is so cool. It allows people to unleash their imagination and create awesome characters or even entire worlds of expansive and unique mythology, where you could explore whatever crazy concept or idea you want, and all just with a pen and paper. It was also a great excuse for uptight people who hate fun to blow a fuse.
Swords, poison, spells, battles, maiming, killing.
Hey, it's all imagination.
Is it?
When it first hit the scene, the enthusiasm spread all over the world, especially in Japan. If you've played the classic Final Fantasy games, for example, you could see the devs thought the monster manual was pretty cool, and it was. Enter Group SNE, a company that began producing content in 1987 from books to board games. One of its founders was this guy, Ryo Mizuno. He was a fan of role-playing games and fantasy content in general, stuff akin to Frank Frazetta or wizardry. Over the years, he garnered a large group of people who he enjoyed playing games with, and many of these guys went on to help found SNE. In high school, Ryo had also started dreaming up the setting of Lodoss, a high fantasy world built on the foundation of a war between divine beings of light and dark. Before SNE was properly founded, Ryo was already having transcripts of the campaigns he ran for the setting published by Comtic magazine, which proved pretty popular, enough that Ryo had the idea to start turning them into novels. And thus, the Record of Lodoss War series was born, beginning with the Grey Witch novel in 1988. This and the second book, Fire Demon, were both hits. OVAs were also near the height of their popularity at the time with releases like Bubblegum Crisis. So when you've got a new novel series that people are eating up, and a medium through which you can adapt it to make even more money, what else do you do but a Lodoss OVA? Well, it's the 90s, so drugs. But whatever the animators at the time were taking, it might have been for the better on the artistic end. The story would be brought to life by Studio Madhouse, who've made a lot of stuff, including some of my favorite anime films of all time. But I didn't find Lodoss through Madhouse. No, I found it in a very me way. What do I mean by that? I'm a big fan of Metroidvanias, and I hadn't seen the OVA when I picked up this game on a Steam sale, but being enamored with the style, I was encouraged to check out the source material. And what did I think of it? Well, Lodoss takes place in a world where the gods of light and dark battled for supremacy. And in case you have trouble keeping up, don't worry. The show makes sure to replay the intro explaining this at the start of every single episode. It's not an actual complaint, but it does get a little old skipping through it every time. You know what I never skip though? The theme song. Now, a lot of anime try and get you hyped at the start. Get that blood flowing and have you pumping your fist in the air, hell yeah! But with Lodoss, the instruments and melody are nice and soothing. There's also the English version, which is fine, I guess, but these songs always sound better in the native language, and there's just no beating the original. Well, unless you're the Proto-Men. This song conveys the feel of the show pretty well. For all its stakes, it's got a wonderfully chill atmosphere most of the time. The show kicks off in a way that might seem jarring at first. Episode 1 actually takes place between episodes 5 and 6, with our ensemble of protagonists trying to reach the Sage Wart to inquire about the evil witch Carla. However, in the way it's presented, I think it's a great start. They give you enough to know what's going on and don't bog you down with all these details while letting you learn about the core cast. Lodoss is in danger relating to this witch lady. Our heroes are trying to stop her and have to pass through this dwarven ruin to get to where they need to go. It's simple enough you don't need the full picture yet, and since they don't have to slow down to introduce everybody's history, the writers can instead have some interactions that sum up the crew perfectly even if you don't know everything about them right now. From the very first bits of dialogue, the party's personalities established, and then we get a little action segment with these gargoyles where they show off what skills they bring to the table. There's Parn, the young knight with a lot of spirit but not as much skill. In this introduction, we see him immediately rush to save his friends when they're in danger, but he also can't take a hint when his wimpy-ass sword can't fuck up a dragon. There's his best friend Ito, whose name I forgot while writing this part. He's a practicing priest and a peacekeeper, the one always trying to keep his friends moving and motivated. Deedlit is the free-spirited elf. She's whimsical, but also fairly capable and has a penchant for nature magic. And Parn's dick. Ghim is the gruff dwarf warrior. He's grumpy, but still has a fair bit of wisdom in that noggin, and his more no-nonsense attitude doesn't clash well with Deedlit's love of fucking around. His calm and collected ally is Slain, a wise sorcerer who is fairly reserved and wields powerful magic. And then there's Woodchuck, the dirty thief. Lodoss is true to its role-playing roots in many places. As someone who's played many D&D campaigns, it invokes that feeling a lot, particularly with how bombastic and defined everybody is. The banter can be so-so, there's corny lines or stilted shit on occasion, but the first episode shows off where it shines, and it feels like a table of friends having fun too, and all the personalities are full of charm. Now, I tend to recommend subs if you're gonna watch an anime I talk about, and same goes for this one, but you know, I do have a soft spot for this show's dub because it helps sell that campaign feeling further.
Man, that thing's gonna end up eating us!
Well then, we'll just have to eat him.
Our leads overall are fairly good, if not a bit goofy on occasion, but a lot of the performances are exaggerated and the delivery can be kind of dorkish or off for some.
Aren't you the ones who are making this needless fight even worse?
So, Ato, has it been 4 years? Well, you don't know how things have been lately, do you?
What? Strangers, you say? Perhaps King Fan of Valis has already been alerted. Or worse.
But I don't know, I think it kinda works. I mean, it could get dark because, you know, it wouldn't be an OVA without a bit of tone whiplash, but the overall tone is upbeat high fantasy adventure, so these voices fit fine for me. And it almost does sound similar to players doing impressions of a character at times, which is fun. Now, the D&D origins do well for the characters since it comes off like witty roleplay between a cool party of memorable weirdos. But it can lead to some problems as well that I'll get to later. Episode 2 reels back to establish the characters proper, and from there we get the bigger picture. The Dark Emperor Beld, one of the former 6 heroes who defended Lodoss, now seeks to conquer it, and he's got evil wizards, knights, and monsters to help him in the task. Parn and Ito's village was attacked by goblins, which kicks off the quest, and from there they become acquainted with the rest of the party. They're all drawn into a journey across the land involving secret agendas, dragons, ancient treasures, and evil schemes. Now, to get it out of the way, the presentation is wonderful. The show has such a bright, almost cozy at times look that is the highest of high fantasy. Ornate castles, awe-inspiring dragons, woodland elves, knights, wizards, ancient relics.
All the stars are here!
Sure, it's tropey, and for that reason I wouldn't hold it among my favorite fantasy settings, but it's more about the aesthetics. It's an 80s fantasy world through an early 90s anime sheen, and I love both. I am more attracted to dark fantasy, at least aesthetically. I know, basic bitch take, but Berserk is king for a reason, but I also grew up on Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy, so I'm partial to this kind of stuff as well. I've always enjoyed Madhouse's overall style. I know they have rotating staff on their projects, but with almost every show I've seen from them, the casts are particularly memorable design-wise. These characters are brimming with charm, not just on the dialogue front. They're very expressive, and the outfits embody old-school fantasy D&D to a T. It's one of those anime where the personalities are conveyed well just through those designs. You can see the innocence and determination in Parn's face or the pure evil radiating from the villains. Mad props to the character designer Nobuteru Yuki. Man's done a ton of stuff, and I recognized his style from a bunch of other OVAs I've seen like Angel Cop and Battle Angel Alita. He's mainly a cyberpunk guy, but it's nice to see he can pull off fantasy as well. His work on them is one of the reasons the characters are really the heart of this show for me. A lot of the creature designs look like they jumped straight out of a D&D book. Again, if Lodoss nails anything, it's that style. You've got your typical fare, goblins, trolls. Okay, the kobolds look a little different to how you might expect. The dragons are fucking sick. I love how eldritch and ornate they look, and how each has their own unique thing going. Shooting Star is a more demonic-looking fire dragon, and one of my personal favorite designs in the show, while the Dragon of Light, Mycen, has an appropriately divine motif with these golden feathers. Now, the dragons do lead into my first issue with the animation. To be fair, this one's more of a nitpick, but the scale is all over the fucking place. I don't have amazing depth perception, but I swear here in episode 1, Woodchuck is up way fucking higher than where he is in the next shot. Or what about Shooting Star? He's either normalish dragon or King Ghidorah sized. Now, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, scale be damned if it looks cool. But there's other things to note. The show has a great atmosphere most of the time, with these moody environments and the score I'll touch on in a sec. But there's a fine line between holding on a shot for atmospheric value and this.
You allowed the High Elf to escape?
Yep, this is one of those ones where sometimes they pad it out with still shots and looping shit. The environments are nice, but not enough that I needed to hang on to them for this amount of time. There is also plenty of still frames and cheaper looking stuff here and there. It gets stiffer as it goes on, so I've got to assume they were stretching the budget. But even with the imperfect elements, I still prefer this to how 90% of anime looks today. And while it's rough around the edges, I still would say the animation overall is good, when they actually bother to animate it. Plus, this is also one of the most hand-drawn looking series I've seen. I love all that hatching. Sometimes a character might look a wee bit wonky in motion, or the ones who are far away can get a little off, but those are all part of the charm for me. That's the best way to describe all of the animation and really the show in general. It's not perfect, but the feeling it conveys when done right is just the nicest vibe. The music is a similarly mixed case. I think the more calm and atmospheric tracks are among the best, because god does the battle theme get old real fast. The amount of times you will hear this music cue in one episode alone is just obnoxious. But that's not the only one I'd say they overdo either.
It's fun.
I understand this is a longer OVA series than most at 13 episodes, so I doubt they had the budget to do original music for each one, but you know, a few extra tracks for moments like these wouldn't have hurt. Again, the rest aren't amazing, but there were a few nice ones here and there. It conveys the appealing fantasy vibe I appreciate when it's not. Still though, not a soundtrack I exactly listen to a ton outside of watching the show. I mean, it's pretty, but I prefer stuff that moves at the pace of my addled brain. The story is sadly not great, either. Not bad per se, hell it's above most OVAs in the regard that it actually has a proper ending, although not for lack of loose ends. But I'm not gonna lie man, it's got a lot of flaws. One major thing I noticed is that as awesome as the setting can be, I think the story is lacking context in places. A good example is the major conflict the first 7 episodes revolve around, the war between the Dark Emperor Bel de Marmo and King Fawn of Valis. Both of these guys have magic swords that are tied to each other and clearly share some history, but in the show itself, it's never really elaborated on. Now, I don't need everything spelled out to me, but it was harder to get invested when I felt like I was missing context for a lot of important things. Like, I'm not a complete idiot, I can gather the demon sword has something to do with demons, but, you know, I kinda wanted to know more, and this isn't one of those so bad it's good or really wild animes that's full of crazy shit. The story is played serious enough and it's relatively straightforward, minus all the history I felt I was missing. They talk about a lot of things and throw out terms as if the viewer should just know what they're referencing, but you don't. A lot of these legendary heroes were once a party of 6 who slew a demon king, which is how Bel's sword got its power. Apparently you get all of this in the books, and it's like the writers assumed you read those, which for the time may have been fair, but none of this shit has been officially localized save the first book, and the average Joe isn't gonna want to go through all this supplementary material to get the full picture. I like lore where everything's not spelt out. It's cool to decipher some of this stuff for yourself, but the story didn't feel like it was intentionally building this mysterious world for you to piece together. Again, feels more like you were supposed to know this stuff. The show opens repeating the same spiel about how Lodoss was formed with the War of the Gods every single fucking time, but maybe instead they could have had it change every couple episodes, take you through the major events of the continent's history and fill you in on some of this stuff without having to stop everything to take a giant exposition dump. Between all this stuff and the occasionally dragging moments, it means the show can be straight up boring sometimes. There were more than a few spots here and there where I was checking texts. Some things are glossed over too quickly. Other times I was wondering why the addition of certain characters was even necessary. I guess that owes to its campaign origins. It explains why parts can be a little disjointed, sudden, or slightly aimless. We don't even really know who our main villain is till near the very end, and there's just a glut of characters in general, but regarding them, I'll start with the good stuff.
Quick, Deed! What's its weak spot?
I'm not a dragon expert. How should I know?
Parn's a solid lead, I like him. Right off the bat, we get the sense that he's just an all-around good guy who wants to follow in his father's footsteps and become a proud knight. Not out of want of glory, but to protect the innocent. Parn's dad, Theseus, died in disgrace since he got taken out in a war before redeeming himself for a previous transgression.
Well, you don't know how things have been lately, do you? He's just like his father, always going against the village's decisions without a care in the world.
Watch it!
Admit it, your father broke the kingdom's laws and was cast out from the Holy Order of Knights.
Understandably, this fucks with Parn pretty hard.
Father like son.
Come here!
He's got anger issues and throws himself in harm's way without much thought if someone's in danger, and he's also driven by his ever-burning determination to honor his dad's legacy, which he almost does by getting his ass kicked and dying to a goblin. But just like any young heroes with daddy issues and a magic sword, he's also got his own Ben Kenobi to watch his back. The townsfolk still managed to fucking blame him since he killed a goblin in the woods defending the mayor's daughter, so they all believe the attack is in retaliation.
Goblins should be frightened off, but they should never be killed.
Yeah, Parn, just try talking to him. I mean, when does that ever go wrong? Slain does sum up Parn pretty well from the start, though.
He's an undisciplined young boy, but there's potential.
His arc is primarily learning to hone his abilities and getting over his headstrong brashness. He's humble and knows he has a lot to learn, but he can be a bit of a Leroy Jenkins type.
Stick to the plan, Chef. Stick to the plan. Oh, gee. Oh, fuck.
In the moment, he often winds up charging in without thinking, so people usually have to remind him, hey, dumbass, you can't solo a dragon.
I actually dodged it once. It still hit me anyway!
He starts out not being able to beat a goblin captain without help, but throughout the series, by busting his ass and having it kicked, you see him grow into someone with skill to match that determination. He only finds out later before getting disgraced his father risked his life and reputation to rescue King Fawn's daughter. See, Fawn had made an agreement with the kingdom that would come to be known as Flame, but later, as part of that treaty, they wanted to sacrifice his daughter to the dragon's shooting star to appease him. At the time, Fawn goes, oh yeah, well, alright, I guess I can have another one. Fuck, man, my daughter's gonna get eaten by a dragon, what the fuck am I gonna do? Don't worry, man, I got you covered. I'll go save her and I can take the fall. Whoa, you sure, man? What, dishonor and shit? Pfft, no worries. I'll just go on the front lines and redeem myself that way. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna die or anything. This just motivates Parn even further. His dad was more of a hero than he knew, and as he'd said, everyone was wrong about him. Well, except for the dying part. I also like that by the end, though, training didn't automatically turn him into a super soldier. Even by the end of the show, he says he has a lot to learn before he becomes a great hero. But the adventure and all of his friends have set him down that path. Parn's story is a basic hero's journey, sure, but it's well done. Most of these guys are fairly basic archetypes at their core, but it's really the interactions and dialogue they share which props them up.
I'm glad we made it this far together. You and me.
I wouldn't say I dislike any of the main party, but if there's one I felt was the least compelling, it would be Ito the practicing priest without question. He's likable enough. As Parn's best friend, he's always there as the one to help edge him along towards overcoming some of his self-doubt and pushing forward. They also play off each other well, with Ito's calm nature balancing out well with Parn's bossman Jack outbursts.
He's such a... Hey, buddy! You need to fucking get the fuck out of my life!
To the point where he might be a bit too calm. In the dub, even when he's screaming, he sounds weirdly held back. Sounds more like Daisy readying her swing. But that's kind of it. I mean, it's hinted that the Princess of Valis has a thing for him, and I like how he's a little dorky. At the same time, it's fair enough since he's a supporting character, and in that regard, he suits the role fine. But I felt like everyone else in the party had something to them that got me more invested. Deedlit and Parn have their thing, Ghim's trying to save his friend's daughter, Slain wants to bang the daughter, and Woodchuck... Well, we'll get to Woodchuck. I just wish maybe they had his romance with the princess go a little further, or maybe we could have learned a little more about his past. His biggest moment is when he holds back a monster to help Parn go ahead in the second to final episode, but everyone else does that too, so it doesn't feel particularly special to him. Deedlit, on the other hand, is a lot more fun. She's the most overtly cheerful out of everyone, but also the most bitchy.
Parn! What's wrong, Deed?
She joins up sort of by chance. She's just chilling in the woods and finds Parn and Ito looking for the goblins. Out of all of the characters, I love her design in particular. I mean, first of all, it's hot as fuck. It conveys her carefree attitude pretty well. And her outfit and color palette are easily the most distinct of the main party. Love the big ass shoulder pads, very 90s. Although she's not designed by Rob Liefeld, so they actually look good. Now, while the show can be slower for the worse, it's done right when it winds down a bit to develop the characters. Parn and Deedlit's relationship is a great example of this. They take the time to give them a lot of little moments to flesh them out. Parn at first is oblivious because he's more focused on fighting and admiring his idols instead of a cute elf in a dress. It's really when he notices how much another girl crushing on him bothers her that he realizes the amount he means to her. I appreciate how wholesome these two are. It's heartwarming. Although ironically, while she's always warning Parn about knowing his limitations, she seems a bit lacking in self-awareness. In fact, a lot of people who lecture him are too. I mean, in the first episode, she doesn't think, obvious treasure just out to grab in a dungeon. Nope, can't see anything going wrong here. I already like these two individually, but their dynamic brings them to another level for me. What can I say? I'm a sucker for a good romance when it's done well. I also like how the dynamic gets flipped at the end. Deedlit is usually saving Parn throughout the show, but now he's got to step up to bat. A nice conclusion to his arc as well. Her spells are also cool with her summoning elementals. All of the magic in this show looks really cool. I love that classic anime glow. Ghim is pretty much the opposite of Deedlit. Immediately, you've got that old-fashioned elf-dwarf racism.
Ew, it smells so moldy.
Then stay behind if you don't like it. Elf complaints aren't welcome in this sacred place.
How dare you?
But Ghim also isn't one for games. He still has a sense of humor, but he's the most outwardly gruff out of our heroes. And he also suffers from brood syndrome pretty hard. You find out why quickly. Ghim is close friends with Lelia, the daughter of a priestess of Mafa named Nis. Lelia nursed Ghim back to health when his old man body wasn't up to the task, and they became good friends after. However, Lelia disappeared suddenly when her body was yoinked by Carla, who's actually a spirit inhabiting this circlet. Ghim doesn't know this at first, so when he sees Carla, he's left with a real mix of feelings. You feel how much this shit's impacted him. Join the club. He's the absolute embodiment of the badass dwarf trope. While he chastises Parn a lot for his recklessness and lack of skill, they aren't too different at their core, in that both are willing to push themselves to the absolute limit to protect the people they love, which results in him having probably my favorite arc in the show. For a while, he's uncertain, but near episode 8, he just says fuck it and goes to face Carla. Plan or not, he's not just gonna stand around. He's gotta do something. And he does. He dies. Damn, bro.
What are you?
He's a dwarf, lady, and he's about to fuck up your shit. By the sheer virtue of being old and badass, Ghim is able to overpower Carla's magic and free Lelia, but he doesn't survive. A tragic but heartfelt little story that's a good ending for him. His buddy Slain shares some traits with Ito, but not necessarily for the better. He's a man of few words and is kinda withdrawn, but makes the ones he does say count. Although he's not as much of an enabler as Ito. When Ghim is being a dumbass, he's not afraid to go, alright buddy, nap time. Like all the other duos in the show, they play off each other great. But like with Ito, I didn't feel he had a ton going on. His bond with Ghim was enjoyable, but after the old dwarf dies, he gets sort of sidelined. Another similarity to Ito is he has a half-baked little romance subplot, since he gets with Lelia after Ghim goes off, which was unexpected on my end. I didn't even know they knew each other before, and don't get me wrong, Slain wanted to help Ghim save her, but he didn't seem that personally invested outside of that. I thought he was just helping out of the goodness of his heart. Again, this is one of those moments where some more context may have been appreciated. I knew he was aware of Lelia and her mother, but not that they were good friends. He's still likable and gets some cool moments, but I just wish they did a little more with him and that he didn't feel so waysided after Ghim died. Also, as with Deedlit, his spells are fucking cool. And now we get to Woodchuck, oh boy. Man, what a waste. Let me introduce you to the Curse of Nate. In fact, I'm honestly surprised it took this long for it to come up in a video at all. See, I don't know if I pissed off a witch or something, but yeah, I'm cursed. Now, thankfully, it's not as bad as it could have been. I don't burst into flames if I walk into a church. Well, actually I do, but that's a separate thing. The point is, whenever I have a favorite character or characters in something, they almost always die horribly or something really lame happens to them. Case in point, Woodchuck. Out of all of the party, I enjoyed this guy's antics in particular. I found it fun that he was just sort of along for the ride. He's not even part of the initial party. They find him in jail in episode 3 because of a misunderstanding, and he's freed during an attack. Now, what frustrates me is that what happens here seems like the perfect setup for an arc. Woodchuck is a thief. He cares about his own gains and little more. He's not evil, he stands against Marmol and doesn't want to seem to hurt anyone, but he's selfish and thinks Parn and his buddies to be right fools at first. Yet Parn still comes back to save him, despite barely knowing this guy who's been nothing but a jerk to him, and it does seem to impact Woodchuck a little bit.
Of course I am. If I bought it in a place like this, I'd never live it down, my friend. But you really can.
I was wondering why exactly he stuck around with them, and while it's never stated outright, I thought that beyond just having nothing better to do, he seemed kinda moved by it. So I assumed, naturally, he was gonna develop and end up risking his life to save his friends at some point, since, you know, him doing something selfless could be a great conclusion to his story. But that's not what happens. Instead...
Huh?
No! No!
There is no stopping the passage of time. But no sooner does one realize this than a new chapter begins.
I remember seeing this and going, oh shit, out loud, because I was fucking invested. My favorite character just got his body jacked by a lich, and now our leads have to rescue him. I mean, they weren't all buddy-buddy with him, Ito especially. Might it raise some questions as to if he's worth saving?
So I thought I'd just build up a war chest and then hightail it to another kingdom. Phallus just wasn't looking out for me this time.
Phallus doesn't grant his protection to thieves like you.
Or maybe it'll make them realize they cared for him more than they thought. I can't wait to see where this intriguing plot thread will go.
Now that's fucking great.
Yeah, this goes straight up nowhere. All it amounts to is Parn in the episode after being a bit shook up, and Carla popping in to do her typical, my mysterious plans are mysterious, aren't they? Shtick. I've never seen a character where they managed to get me invested twice and fuck it up both times. Now, I get the books weren't finished, so this is probably one of those things where they didn't want to fuck with it too much for that reason, but I looked into it. Apparently it didn't really matter in the books either. I guess Carla just ditched him at some point, and that's kind of it. Feels like there's a whole novel's worth of story right there, but neither seemed that interested in the idea, which in that case... why did you bother? Now, at the end of the day, it's not a major enough factor for it to be a huge issue. I'd say all the stuff related to the pacing and some of the characters I'm gonna get into later are a lot worse, but man, the curse claims yet another victim.
A gift from my son, for good luck.
Oh wow, I'm sure nothing bad's gonna happen to him. The supporting cast outside of the party is okay. Having all of these characters could have worked in sessions where they're only showing up from the players' perspectives, but as is, a lot of them come off as what they began as, NPCs to help the main party along on their way. At the same time, I can't complain too much considering they aren't too intrusive and work okay in that respect. King Cashew is the stoic ruler of the Kingdom of Flame, a desert community stationed near the dwelling of Shooting Star. So naturally, you've got to be pretty badass to handle that. He's Parn's idol, to the point where he'd rather be staring off at him than the elf tits close by, because, you know, dancing with girls... that's gay. He's gruff and stern towards Parn, but it's tough love. He wants to see the guy become the hero he knows he can be, and isn't gonna bullshit around when he's not meeting the standard he should. You can see the contrast of the earlier and final scenes they share. I really did feel that by this point they're addressing each other as true equals with a mutual respect. You know, instead of blind simpery and reminding the little man of his place. He was one of the better supporting characters. He's got a cool history, some memorable moments, and while he's not super fascinating on his own, the role he plays in Parn's story is an important one. It's kind of funny though that between his dad and Cashew, Parn's got another role model, King Fawn, one of the 6 legendary heroes who fought alongside Beld. He fell a little flat for me at first because, again, the history between him and Beld is something, but as I mentioned, we don't get enough for it to be any more than vague musings from the two about things we're not privy to. I parsed out the important details, but I think a flashback or two showing that these guys used to be allies and letting us see that switch would have made it a lot more effective. I do like the moments with him and Parn where he reveals to him his father's history and helps him overcome some of that self-doubt, while also relieving himself of some of the guilt he carried for it. Overall, he's fine and more fleshed out than Belle by far, and his death was a lot more impactful in that regard. Shiras and Orson are another aspect that feels very D&D, in that they're characters who show up a little later and are just sort of along for the journey. If you play D&D, you might have a campaign where an important character dies and you need a replacement, or someone new joins the story later. That character might be interesting or entertaining, yeah, but they're also jumping midway into an unfolding plot that they might not necessarily slot into all the way. These two are a pair of mercenaries battling the forces of Marmo, and because they have literally 2 fucking IQ, they see our heroes and immediately assume since they have an elf with them, they're evil.
What's with you? Don't tell me that you can't tell the difference between me and a dark elf. What?
Yeah, you fucking racist. But they sort it all out, and from there, they're just, kind of there. I mean, they have some investment. Shiras also wants that Parn D, but realizes he's taken and seems happy to just be his friend as well. Orson is actually pretty cool and contributes to one of the more interesting pieces of lore for the setting. I've always thought the Berserker trope was interesting, particularly when they delve into the more mystical aspect. Warriors who can fight on, empowered by some force their enemies can't fully comprehend. In Lodoss, Berserkers are people overtaken by the dark spirit Hiri, who instills them with unfound power, but they can't tell friend from foe once they start swinging. But the sad thing is, we only get glimpses of this. There's no moment where he gets to fully let loose. I saw this clip and it had me kind of excited.
He's in our way.
Orson! It's impossible! Orson!
I was thinking, yes, please just let him fight a fucking dragon. But no. God damn, man, this show left me feeling blue-balled so many times. Shiras is fun, I like her plucky personality and that she's probably a better person than she gives herself credit for. Orson is also cool with what we get from him, but at the end of the day, they're just kind of around. And considering who they're replacing, yeah, not much of a substitute. But despite all their flaws, I still like the protagonists a lot. They're just so damn fun. And I wanted to feel the same way about the antagonists. I love villains in a story. I don't give a fuck how evil they are, as long as they're interesting. I'm hooked. And one of my favorite tropes is seeing a group of villains I find cool trying to outplay and scheme against one another. The ones here have awesome designs, plenty of personality, and they do get some of those backstabbing team dynamics, but I have the same issue with them as I have with the villains in the Star Wars prequels. Each has a lot of potential, but the show needed to rein in its focus and develop them a little more, because as is, the development and screen time between them is too uneven. There's cool plot seeds planted regarding them. Beld has Soul Crusher, Ashram has his hot GF and inherits Soul Crusher, Carla is mysterious, and Wagnard is Wagnard. At first, it really seems like Carla is meant to be the main villain. She's the one manipulating everything behind the scenes, and she's got an interesting enough motive. Throughout history, she's stepped in to alter its course to keep the scales balanced, ensuring neither light nor dark shall preside entirely. I like that kind of morally gray stuff, provided the story doesn't go too far into the whole, oh, well, is it really that bad to do what I'm doing? Because, you know, it clearly is. It culminates in her killing Beld after he slays Fawn, but that was her whole plan. So after she yoinks Woodchuck, she basically fucks off from the story. So then it seems like Ashram, Beld's second in command, has taken over. Except, he kind of sucks as a leader. Beld was the brains of the Empire, while Ashram is shown to have basically no tactical prowess. He's your stereotypical Black Knight. His only real motive seems to be conquest and finding a worthy foe. Now, he started to get a little more interesting when his rivalry with Parn heats up and when Puritas is introduced. His Dark Elf GF, who's... Sorry, felt something move down there. He's far from fascinating on his own, but I like how he serves as a dark parallel with Parn. Both are warriors with an overpowering drive, except Ashram is driven by a will to dominate and Parn by a will to protect. It extends to his relationship with Puritas. She doesn't gain his attention from affection, but rather devotion. The main thing Parn and Ashram's relationships have in common is that both don't fully realize how much they do care about their loved ones till later. But here's the problem. They don't do much with it. There's some conflict with her being caught up in Wagnard and Ashram's conflicting agendas, but it just ends with her and Ashram staying by each other when they die in Shooting Star's lair, which would have been a great send-off. Ashram realizing that what he really wanted was right here in front of him this whole time. Except he doesn't die. Carlos saves him and sends him off to kill Wagnard, who manipulated him into retrieving the mysterious Scepter of Domination for his own evil plans. Now, first off, Ashram, it was very obvious this man was going to betray you. I mean, not to judge a book by its cover, but he looks pretty fucking evil, even by villain standards. Yeah, so this guy Wagnard winds up being the main villain. I have real mixed feelings on this. I like what it seems they were going for, having this guy who's more unassuming in the background, who suddenly becomes the pawn of an evil god's plan and lets that power go to his head. Turns out Cardis is sealed under Marmo, and Wagnard wants to resurrect her to inherit some of that god power. He's a bit Voldemort-esque, where he's fixated on eternal life since his reign won't last.
What does it matter that one person should control, when all of us surely will die over time?
Now, this is something I could see working much better in book form, having Wagnard sort of gradually build in the background. As is, though, it comes off more like, oh, okay, I guess you're the main villain now? Cool. Also, I like the names mostly, but Wagnard? Come on now.
Come on.
We don't get enough of him early on for it to be as impactful as it should. At least he's more fun in the final episodes where he starts to really let loose when that power goes to his head. Also, the design gets cooler too. He starts becoming more monstrous when empowered by Cardis. And his already ornate costume gets some nice and ghoulish features to go with it. Now, to get further into where this all leads and why it left me kinda disappointed, I'm gonna talk about the ending itself. Now, in regards to this series as an adaptation, from what I've read, it's faithful to the core beats with a few little additions or deviations here and there. But the conclusion to this whole storyline was still being written as the OVA was coming out, so the writers didn't have one to work off and just had to wing it.
We'll do it live!
Turns out Wagnard needs the artifact known as the Scepter of Domination and the life force of a high elf to resurrect Cardis. So for the conclusion, he's kidnapped Deedlit, the ritual is commencing, and now all of our heroes have come together in one epic final battle to take him down. It's a solid setup, but sadly it encapsulates a lot of the show's problems for me. I mean, first of all, it's padded to shit. There's plenty of dragging shots, and a lot of these battle scenes went on too long for my taste and aren't really dynamic enough to keep my interest for the entire duration. Now, apparently in the book, Lelia is the one required for the ritual, but I think I prefer it being Deedlit. Sure, Lelia goes a little off to the wayside, but she's still active enough in the story from this point and doesn't just fade away, even if she could have done more. Plus, having it be Deedlit ties it more directly into Parn's whole journey, and it's a satisfying conclusion for his character. The scene where each friend stays behind to help him go ahead may be a little cliche, but it's also a nice culmination of their bonds. They all stand by each other. It's the key advantage they have over their opposition. Well, aside from all the awesome magic. Wagnard is pretty underwhelming for the reasons I mentioned, but again, it was fun to see him get all crazy and demonic. Plus, I liked what seemed to be the ending for him, where he's going on and on about the power of Cardis and how he's her holy avatar. But then when he can't win against Ashram, Cardis just condemns him to a hell pit for his failure.
Just a scratch, which means nothing since Cardis has granted me eternal life! What's happening?
Yeah, get fucked. Okay, now that I mentioned the main things I like, on to the bitching. They keep building up that Ashram is gonna try and stop Wagnard because he knows resurrecting Cardis is kind of a bad idea, but he's unable to defeat him even with the power of Soul Crusher. Then Parn shows up, and they keep drawing attention to their swords, and I'm thinking, well, if one magic sword can't stop Wagnard, maybe two can. I mean, it would be great thematically since Beld and Fawn were once allies, to have these blades and their wielders united once more against a common foe. That would be a cool parallel. And it kind of happens at the very end, but only Parn uses them. Instead, Ashram just beats Wagnard on his own and decides he's gonna fight Parn anyway since he's kind of a dick like that. Now, I was disappointed at first, but hey, this is still cool. Getting to see Parn face and overcome his nemesis who's been egging him on since episode 3. But instead, Parn gets his ass kicked. And then Wagnard is just suddenly not dead and strangles Ashram to death. Wow, yeah, that's really lame. You know, I see this trend in a lot of stories and I just don't fucking get it. Where a character has all this build-up and they get you invested in them, and then they just die unceremoniously and that's it? And it's treated as if it's somehow a satisfying or deep conclusion, when really it seems like the writer just couldn't come up with something to do with them. Why did they bother keeping Ashram around when it seemed like he died in the volcano? If that had been the end for him, I wouldn't say he's an amazing character or anything, but it's a hell of a lot more satisfying. He got resurrected for one purpose only to just fail. What was the point? Now, thankfully, the very end does at least provide a fairly satisfying conclusion to Parn's story. Braving the energies of the Chaos Goddess herself with both blades in hand, Parn, against all odds, manages to rescue Deedlit and thwart Cardus' resurrection. Through sheer determination, he stands triumphant and... oh, hey, look at that. They saved showing her boob till the very end. Talk about restraint. Guess Madhouse was just waiting to throw it all away for Paprika. While he could stay in Valis and be an honored hero, Parn decides he doesn't want to stay put.
Trying to sneak off without me, huh? Lodoss can get awfully lonesome sometimes, you know.
With his friends bidding him farewell, he rides off with Deedlit towards adventures unknown. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Record of Lodoss War. A real mixed bag. I definitely wouldn't call it one of the best OVAs of all time. It's just too flawed for that. There's plenty of characters who are set up well, but don't really go anywhere. The show can feel kind of aimless in general, like you've been dropped into a land you could serve to have more info on. When it comes down to it though, the biggest issue is the pace. I don't mind a slow burn, but that ain't it. This is padding straight up. And it doesn't help that with all these underdeveloped plot lines, there's plenty of scenes that just wind up being pointless too. Now, there's not enough of it to ruin the show, but it's one of the reasons I can't hold it in as high regard as I want to. Because while it can be frustrating at times, the core story of Parn's journey is solid. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And the cast of characters he meets along the way are so memorably fun. Even if the show should have done more with some of them, I still couldn't get enough of their interactions. If you're getting into OVAs, it's not one I'd say you should clamor out to watch first. There's way better shit you should check out beforehand. But overall, it's definitely worth a try. Aspects of it may be meh, but if you know what you're going into and can appreciate it in spite of its flaws, you're probably gonna have a good time. And if you have seen the OVA already, I recommend you check out Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth. It truly hits different once you've seen this.